think Gavin Newsom would do this. He got shot. He would run.
So Trump keeps saying, oh my God, if Trump was president, we wouldn't have any of these wars.
Under Biden, we do have more war. Under Trump, we had no war.
You've mentioned Ukraine. We've given $300 billion to Israel over all these years. You want to stop giving money to Israel?
Protecting a nation of Israel in a time of crisis is not the same. The only money in politics weakness I have is this.
So why don't we knock out the two that are the most direct, giving directly to politicians and the super PACs?
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to be going through a recent debate between Charlie Kirk and the Young Turks. There are some very interesting topics brought up in this one, such as American foreign policy, as well as money in politics. And just quickly, it was very funny how this thing started off. So let's check that out.
All right, back at the Young Turks at the RNC. Cenk, Uygur, and as you can tell, Charlie Kirk joins us.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Good to have you here from Talking Points USA. And so
Close.
Turning Point.
Oh, did I say that? That's hilarious. I meant Turning Point USA.
Close,
that was a Freudian slip. Okay, so
so I don't know if Cenk actually meant that or not. To me, it seemed like it actually was a Freudian slip, but it's probably because he is just so used to calling Turning Point USA Talking Points USA that he just naturally says it. But either way, I actually don't mind that. I think that there should be more lighthearted banter between the two sides, rather than the Don Lemon approach, where you genuinely hate the other side and all of your animosity gets built up to the point where it just comes out as really passive-aggressive and manipulative.
So you do a lot of it at night, like late at night. So when you're doing this, are you sober when you do it?
Almost always,
Are you under the influence of anything?
No, I don't drink. I don't really. No.
Forward to continuing that conversation.
We'll
Thank
continue
you.
the conversation.
Thank
you
you
so much.
Thank you, Papa.
We'll talk about China.
Yes, let's talk about China.
Next time you come back.
Oh, thank you. Much to say on declaring independence from China.
Okay,
Something you
can
can
we
add
move on now, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think people should be able to make fun of each other more as long as you can take it just as well as you can give it. Anyways, just what came to mind when I watched that. Let's get into the substance of the conversation.
So Charlie, you and I now have some strange agreements. Okay, so
The whole world is just, it's coming to an end.
right. So, but believe me, we have plenty of disagreements, and we're going to get to it. So we both think Biden's a bad candidate. We both say that we represent the populist wing of our parties, right? So let me start with a simple question. Do you want Biden to stay the Democratic nominee?
Boy, that's a good question. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that he's probably the most beatable right now. I would think so. Yeah. Especially Democrat corporate oligarch Biden. The more that he's leaned into kind of more of the progressive stuff over the last couple of weeks, I think it makes him harder to beat. But I just don't think he's not all mentally there.
Okay, good one.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the vulnerabilities on the right. You know, one thing that I've noticed you say, other members of conservative media say, is that, you know, the female vote is a lot more difficult for conservatives, right? Or for the Republican Party, that the unmarried women are more likely to vote for Democrats. That's the problem. We need to get women married and they'll change their political views. But honestly, I wonder if you realize statements like the one you made at a Turning Point USA event. You said something along the lines of, well, women are past their prime once they turn 30, right? Do you ever wonder whether those kinds of messages might actually be, you know, a little offensive to women, and then they might think that represents the entirety of the Republican Party? You know, it's not exactly the most welcoming message for women.
Well, I mean, first, what I said specific, it's close to what I said, but what I said is as women get older, the dating pool shrinks, which is obvious. And I think you would agree with that. So, I mean, unfortunately, that's the biological reality we live in. But yeah, look, I mean, we do a big women's summit. I think that our agenda is very popular for all people. But it's not a new phenomenon that young women lean liberal. But certainly since the, reversal of Roe versus Wade and bring it back to the States, Democrats have enjoyed some, I think, short-lived popularity with young female voters for sure.
Now, right here at the convention, you said that all men should vote for Trump.
Well, I didn't say, well, I do think all men should vote. Yes. I said that you're not a man if you don't vote for Trump.
Yeah, that's even worse, of course.
Yeah.
So look.
I mean, come on, Cenk, look at that. I mean, can your candidate do that?
Yeah. No.
No.
And so, look, I'm honest.
Who's your preferred candidate?
Oh, I would never.
You think Bernie could do this? if Bernie got shot, would Bernie do this?
Look, I hope nobody ever gets shot.
How about
We
Gretchen
never
Whitmer?
find out. We
Do-
never
do you
find out. Hey,
think-
Gretchen Whitmer almost got kidnapped by you guys. So,
Well, no,
so
well-
she was pretty courageous on that
well-
too. So, okay,
Hold
anyway.
on, but do you think Gavin Newsom would do this? He got shot. He would run quick away if Gavin Newsom got shot.
So, but
I'm giving
Charlie,
you a hard time.
I know.
See, once again, I enjoy this sort of debate where they can give each other a hard time, but also have a laugh, because there are many ways to articulate a point. And here, Charlie Kirk is using humor to articulate a very serious and strong point. And the point is that Donald Trump is the baddest man in politics. Donald Trump is unfazed. And even Chunky Yogurt is sitting there saying, yeah, okay, that's pretty badass. And guys, if you want to get your unfazed shirt, you can check out the reality-based store. We have just launched our own merch store, and I guarantee you, bar none, it is the most based cultural merch in the game. So you can browse our catalog below, or you can go to realitybasedstore.com to get your merch today. It's all going to be linked below. But anyways, you can absolutely guarantee that if any of these other guys, Gavin Newsom, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, for heaven's sake, if they had have gone through what Donald Trump went through, they would have crumbled into an absolute mess. But the reason why Donald Trump was able to do what he was able to do is because he is a genuinely tough guy. He has spent his whole entire life and career in the trenches. He's risen to the top of the New York real estate game and would have had to contend with some of the most formidable people in the world in terms of business deals. And he took scalps along the way. You absolutely cannot be a pushover in that world. You have to be able to know exactly how to get the best deal for yourself, and you have to be uncompromising in that pursuit.
You're gonna fight it to the bitter end?
I always fight to the bitter end, don't I?
And this is exactly why Donald Trump is the best man for the job when it comes to getting the job done on the world stage with tough global leaders.
A little pat.
Shaking the underpat.
Look, you know,
There you go.
He will get the best deal for America, unlike Joe Biden, who they would be laughing at. Joe Biden is clearly getting taken advantage of on the world stage. It is so obvious by now. And just to reiterate this point, let's have a listen to the next part.
But how about this? Instead of $200 billion to Ukraine, $200 billion to say that moms can stay with their babies for 12 weeks.
I mean,
Can we
Oh,
agree?
we would definitely.
Okay,
yes.
then we have
Yeah,
agreement.
Okay, because look, I think Russia, Russia did invade Ukraine.
They were
and-
provoked.
Now, all right, we can get into that disagreement.
See, I'm more
but
based on war than you are.
no. Look,
You're the
okay, well, let me
neoliberal
ask
now.
you-
I'm giving you a hard time.
No. Let me ask you the same
They were
question.
provoked, though. Come on.
Charlie, let me ask you the same question I asked Giuliani last time. So Trump keeps saying, and you guys all agree, oh my God, if Trump was president, we wouldn't have any of these wars. You say that?
Well, it's not speculative, Cenk. He was president, and we didn't have these wars.
Okay.
So it's not
But
as
he
if
says, but he says it's because they know that not to mess with me.
the because is a guess. The point is you have to agree for 4 years we didn't have the wars. The
But
because
what
could be
would-
because of his stature, it could be because of threats, it could be because of relationships or friendships. That's all a guess. I don't know and you don't know. We only know what happened for 4 years, which is no new wars, first time in 40 years.
So, but he keeps saying, because they know that I'm tough. Does that mean that if Russia invaded Ukraine on Trump's watch, that Trump would have attacked Russia?
Well, but they didn't. I don't know the answer to that. So he is making an argument that they didn't invade because of our big military peace through strength, and I threatened to bomb the Kremlin. Maybe that's true, or maybe it's that he had the cojones to have a Helsinki summit and was attacked by his own intel agencies. And Donald Trump looked in the camera and they said, "Well, do you not trust the CIA?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't trust the CIA." Which was totally true, by the way. So I don't know. Like, we're guessing as to the why, but we do know the what. Here's the what. Under Biden, we do have more war, and war is terrible. Under Trump, we had no war. And so the
okay,
why, we'll
He
argue,
tried-
we'll argue
hold on.
forever, Cenk, but you have to at least agree on the reality that there were no new wars under Trump.
some areas I actually agree. And this is just me speculating. You're right. No one knows
It's a
for
guessing
sure.
game.
But I do think that Trump's stature and also the fact that he's a bit of a wild card and you don't know whether he's going to be a rational actor did
I
dissuade
totally
people like Putin from,
Is
so
that- I don't
I'll
think
give
that's a
you
bad
that.
thing, right?
No, I don't think
Yeah.
that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do have a very specific question on something Trump did that could have led to a disastrous war. Luckily, it didn't. But the Iran nuclear deal, right? The Iran nuclear deal prevented Iran from developing nuclear weapons. And it had a way of ensuring, like, it wasn't just between the United States and Iran. There were other countries in the international community who signed onto that deal, and Iran allowed for members of that community to go in and check to make sure that they were not developing nuclear weapons. Trump took that, ripped it up. And then for a while, Iran still followed through with the deal, even though Trump ripped it up. They didn't need to. And then after a while, they're like, you know what? There's a lot of antagonism toward us. We're going to develop the nuclear weapons. And so they started enriching uranium again. Then you have the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, which, did lead. That was aggressive, and that could have led to an even bigger disaster. There's already been some retaliation by Iran toward our troops as a result of that. So can you at least acknowledge that there were at least some areas where Trump was belligerent in regard to international policy?
Guys, if you're enjoying this video and if you have not liked it, I would appreciate it if you could smash that big old thumbs up below. And if you're getting value from this, if you feel like you might come back sometime, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. Back to it.
And the argument that his camp would make, again, I'm not a spokesperson for Trump, okay? I'm just an admirer, friend, and an advocate, is that because of the hawkishness in certain elements, that it created peace. And it's hard to disagree with that. I'm not a fan of trying to go to war with Iran. I don't think the Iranian regime is moral or good, but I have a consistent mantra that has been developing over the last decade, and I think a lot of Americans are with me. Foreign abstractions mean far less than pressing domestic crises. And so it's just like this war with Iran is a weird fanatical obsession with some people in my party that are here right now, like Senator Lindsey Graham. And it's insane and it's weird and it's destructive to our own country. And I speak about it both publicly and privately. And you know who also is sympathetic when I'm saying? J.D. Vance. And so that's a fact.
Well, so I want to ask you about that as well. But so you mentioned Ukraine. We've given $300 billion to Israel over all these years. You want to stop giving money to Israel?
No, I don't. I think it's not the same thing. Happy to tell you why. And I've made the argument before. First of all, I will agree. It is deserving of explanation why the aid to Israel went from 14 billion to 26 billion just like magically overnight. That's like, again, I'm like super Israel, like, guys, come on. Like, you just can't just make up numbers and just start. But no, I will say this as someone who is a believer in a place for American Jewry to have a country and a state. I do believe that it is worthy of some form of aid. If it's repaid, if it's in American arms, again, I'm not a policy wonk, guys, on that stuff. But I do think that protecting a nation of Israel in a time of crisis is not the same as assisting Ukraine.
Let me ask you something even more specific in regard to our aid to Israel. The United States has not had a budget surplus since 2001. That was literally the last time we had a budget surplus. Israel had a budget surplus in 2022. Okay, the pandemic didn't matter. They still
that's a very good argument.
Right. So
I can't disagree.
That American taxpayers should fund the bombs that Israel is dropping on Gaza is ridiculous to me. But
so the world was an objectively more safe place when Donald Trump was president. There is just no doubt about that. The left can try and spin it all they want, and they can try and give credit to Obama and say that the only reason why Biden is having all these problems is because of the legacy that Trump left. But the facts are just the facts. And it just goes back to the point before. Trump is tough. Other world leaders don't want to mess with him. And he's unpredictable. The media paints him in a bad light for that, but in politics, that can be a very good thing. It is no small ask to be able to pick up the phone, ring President Putin, and tell him exactly what to do. When that phone rings and Putin sees Trump, he would be thinking, I don't know what I'm in for here. That's a good thing.
The years of war, weakness, and chaos will be over. I don't have wars. I had no wars other than ISIS, which I defeated, but that was a war that was started. We had no wars. I could stop wars with a telephone call. I could stop wars with just a telephone call.
And we know for a fact, and Biden has confirmed this, that he has not spoken to Vladimir Putin since the outbreak of the war. And that just goes to show how useless he is. Or maybe it just goes to show that there are many people within his administration, or within Washington in general for that matter, that are actually just happy to keep this war going and to keep on sending billions of dollars of taxpayers' money to Ukraine, for Ukraine to then spend on defense contractors. The same defense contractors that fund the politicians' campaigns and that give them nice, cushy, high-paying jobs on their board when they retire. because they scratch their back while they're in office. That's the way it works. Nothing suspicious at all, guys. And that's why it's such a massive point of difference to have somebody in office who has no incentive to try and make their family wealthy through politics and through their position. Trump's already a billionaire and he doesn't need it. And actually, Eric Trump made a really powerful speech just yesterday highlighting this. Check it out.
8 years ago, my father sat our family down. He spoke of a nation in decline, of dreams slipping away, of a future endangered by failed leadership and broken promises. It was in that moment I knew my father had made a decision that would forever change our lives. We realized he had chosen to step into the arena, to fight for the soul of America. He had decided to leave behind the comforts of an unbelievable business empire, to leave behind everything he had ever built, to answer the call to serve our nation. Unlike his predecessor, it was not a decision born out of necessity. Unlike the current president, it was not a decision that would enrich his family. Rather, it was a decision made out of love for this country and a deep concern for America's future. My father was clear it would not be easy, that there would be a huge price to pay, and that the attacks would be vicious. Looking back, that was an understatement. The made-up Russia hoax, the sham impeachments, the efforts to destroy an unbelievable company, a company that I run today, the efforts to cancel us, to silence him, to gag his free speech, and to drag him through every radical left courthouse in America, to take his life.
So very impressive stuff. And if there's anything that's been totally reinforced over the last week, it's just how strong and impressive and unified the Trump family is. And then when you contrast that with the other swamp creatures in Washington, the Biden family, for example, they enter politics as a way to leverage their positions to enrich themselves and their families, all on the taxpayer's dime. And this is why people call Washington, D.C. one big whorehouse, where the politicians are all just selling their booties to the highest paying bidder. And as for the point about Israel there, I think Charlie has a pretty clear double standard. I mean, his organization, TPUSA, would have a lot of very rich and powerful pro-Israeli Zionist donors. And that's just how American conservative politics works. Don't shoot the messenger. If he doesn't openly and strongly support Israel, then his organization does not exist. And this goes for most conservative political commentators that you watch. FYI. And now on to the last bit about money in politics, which I found very interesting.
Money in politics. So for us on the left, that's the number one issue because that's what leads to all this corruption in the first place. Why do we give money to defense contractors endlessly? Because they give money to the politicians. Why do we give money to the oil companies? You want to drill? No problem. We can have that debate, right? But why are we giving $20 billion extra of taxpayer money to the richest corporations in the world? And it's because they give money to politicians. The money in politics is the original cancer. What do you think?
I don't know if it's the original sin. I agree with a lot of that, by the way. I would love your guys' thoughts. So you guys, because when I first was at Politicon, this was like a huge issue, Citizens United. That was like 7 or 8 years ago, because that was like my biggest interaction with like really left-wing activists. What do you think of a lot of left-wing forces embracing the dark money? Are you guys not fans of that? Like,
no.
Okay, Lorraine Pell Jobs, Emerson Collective, Arabella Advisors, Democracy Alliance.
No.
Okay, cool. So we agree, because I think that's like creepy and weird. Like the fact that the Democrat Party has a much better organized billionaire class of funders than even the Republican Party does at the moment. But what is your question? Do I want campaign finance reform, or
how about we end the private financing of elections? Because if you if you privately finance elections, they're going to serve private interests.
So this is a tough issue, and let me tell you why. However, presidential elections were that way from Nixon to Obama. That both candidates took public. There is a law actually that as a president you get your election publicly financed, up to about $700 million. However, you could decide to not take the money, which everyone does, because you can raise more money that way. So and
Obama is the first one.
He broke the tradition.
Yeah, he broke the tradition and took more
because of small dollar.
Money.
And
that's right.
And then we haven't gone back.
That's
now,
right.
Theoretically, right now, Donald Trump could say, I'm going to take the $700 million, but it's a $3 billion race. You're going to lose. But I'm seriously interested from a policy perspective. What does that look like? That means that the U.S. taxpayer should fund every dog catcher running in every state. Like, no, actually,
yeah.
And I'm not being facetious. Like,
no, I totally get it. So what happens is not everybody gets money. You have to prove that there's enough support for you that you should be one of the candidates that does get money. And you do that with grassroots support, signatures, et cetera, et cetera.
Did third-party candidates also get?
Yeah, so it depends
money?
on how you set it up, but it certainly could be that way, yes.
Okay.
And I would want it to be that way.
So Bobby Kennedy, would you get it appropriated based on your polling data?
So there's different ways of doing it, but yes, that could be one metric as to how we do it.
Is there still a carve-out for small dollar donors to still give money?
No, definitely.
So you're not against the mom and the pop and the plumber getting money.
Exactly right. Okay. You know why? Because they're the average American that the politician should be serving anyway. So, but you cap it at like $100 or $200, and then you say, and we're not going to give it to you unless you qualify. And once you qualify, you're going to get the same exact money. Now let's have an intellectual debate. Let's have a real debate of ideas instead of who's got more money. Because you're right. Right now, the Democrats have more money. And so the Democrats can just go and buy any seat they want if they have more money than the Republicans. And that's not fair. So it's also not fair when the Republicans have more money.
What do you think is the weakness in this policy, if there is one?
I don't think there actually is much of a weakness. I'm an expert on this, and only because I've been working with Larry Lessig from Harvard Law for all these years. He's the godfather of the movement to get money out of politics. This has been thought through in every way. The reason it doesn't get done, Charlie, is because all of the current politicians, their base of power is the donor money. So they don't want to let it go. That's how they got elected.
So in other countries, so let me take a step back. So if our idea is to become populist, right, and to listen to voters, why is it in other countries that have publicly financed elections in the last couple of years, we've seen them embrace mass migration and funding Ukraine when their voters don't want it?
No, that's an interesting question, because those countries are actually swinging back and forth, and they're constantly choosing the new candidate for change, because we all live under corporate rule. And all those, whether it's Brazil, France, UK, they're all swinging. They go Brexit, then they go a massive labor victory.
Correct.
Right? In France, they go Macron when he's new. Now that he's the incumbent, they go against Macron, and they go even further left than Macron when they were about to go right. It's not right, left. It's not right, left. It's change. They go Bolsonaro in Brazil, then they go Lula.
Yeah.
And it's because they don't have entrenched power that comes with corporate money being given to politicians.
Right. Well,
we're the most corrupt because we legalize bribery.
The only money in politics weakness I have is this, is that the way you regulate it, and this is the Citizens United case, is that would the Young Turks be considered a Democrat super PAC?
I mean,
that's not a facetious question.
No, I totally get it.
That's actually a good faith question, because you see what I'm saying?
No, I do. So,
because turning point,
media,
right?
No, same thing applies for both of us, okay? You have to carve out media. First of all, it's a constitutional issue because freedom of the press.
That's why they decided Citizens United the way they did.
No, I know that.
The Hillary Clinton book, as you know, is the essence of the.
Yeah, people don't want our politicians controlled by the money that they are getting directly or indirectly. When it comes to media, there is no way to solve that. Even in countries that don't have the money in politics problem, they still have media. And so media is going to be right, media is going to be left, media is going to be in the middle. You can't end media because then you have a freedom of press and freedom of speech issue.
Hear me out then. So let's just say the billionaire class can no longer give money to Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Why wouldn't they go spend $100 million and publish books in media and distribute them?
They would. They definitely would.
Okay, so then this.
No, I know that.
The system is.
But Charlie, think about it. No, it's not. So two things. Number one, it's not going directly to the politicians. So that creates,
fair enough. So it's some distance.
It's a significant distance, right? So for example, if they gave it to us, I'm not going to go and advocate for politicians just because somebody gave us money. I know others would. I know others would, okay? But they have to win over an audience. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, hear me out. If you're a billionaire in January of an election year, you could stand up a shell corporation with $100 million, run a bunch of ads and call it, Patriot Media or People's Media, and and do a bunch of attack stuff against. What I'm getting at is, at the essence of the Citizens United case, and I know your audience knows this very well, was that is it constitutional to write a criticism? Is it a campaign finance violation if I were to write a book against Hillary Clinton? And they argued, they said, yeah. And so, but that's not more than media. We're talking about, how about people? Let's take a step back, okay? What if Taylor Swift were to come out theoretically, and she would say, go vote for Joe Biden. Is that an in-kind political contribution for his campaign?
So you can't stop that. But Charlie, you don't have to stop that. You're saying, well, currently they could fund media, and they do, right? And they could fund the politicians and the super PACs. Well, then they have three different massive ways of influencing the politicians. So why don't we knock out the two that are the most direct, giving directly to politicians and the super PACs? Then you've got the media issue. But at that point, and it's not that it's impossible, but they have to say, like, let's say they want a giant corporate tax cut for Google, that we don't want it, you don't want, right? And so then they go, oh, we have a show here that tells you how great it is to do tax cuts for giant corporations.
Yeah, stuff, right?
Right, it's not going to work. It's a lot less likely to work than, here, Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, take a check from Google. Now give me a goddamn text.
Yeah, but let's make sure we understand, though, that the direct, if you have to go, I understand, but the direct money in politics, though, is more limited than I think you're presenting it. It's like $2,700 limits you can give to super PACs. The super PAC technically is supposed to have some distance from candidates.
Yeah, but
come on.
No, Cenk, I agree. It's a bunch of BS, right?
Okay.
It's a bunch of nonsense because they share data and all that stuff. But then but do you see any concern that this is regulating speech?
No.
So an interesting back and forth there with strong arguments from both sides. I mean, my personal opinion is that donations from corporations and super PACs to political campaigns should be completely and utterly outlawed, even though they will find a way to spend their money and influence politics, as Charlie said. I personally think that if massive corporations and foreign governments, for that matter, give lots of money to a politician's campaign, it can get to the point where they're your main donor and they own you. You cannot go against them, or else your campaign is done. Finito.
Let me tell you something. You stupid little runt. I own you. You're my bitch.
And I don't want to insult the intelligence of anybody watching this, but I think we all know that generally it's the case that whoever spends the most money wins the election. According to OpenSecrets.com, money doesn't always equal victory, but it usually does. Sometimes contributions flow to the candidate who is already viewed as being much stronger than his or her opponent. Sometimes the money goes to the less well-known candidate and results in a surge in popularity. Even in wave elections, the candidate who spends the most usually wins. This trend is stronger in the House than in the Senate, but applies in both chambers. And you can see here, this chart is the percent of races won by the top spending candidate. And the House is a little bit higher with nearly 100% every single time. And then the Senate tends to hover around that sort of 80 to 85% mark. So very interested to read your thoughts on this one, guys. Lay out in the comments your strongest cases for why or why not big corporations should or shouldn't be able to spend on political campaigns directly. So with that, guys, make sure to check out the reality-based store. Those links are all going to be below. And also my links for the personal socials and whatnot will be there. If you guys would like to subscribe to the channel, you can obviously click right here. And then if you'd like to watch another video, right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.